All right, so we're live on YouTube.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Tonight, I'm Dustin Coyner. I'm here with Richard Stanboli from Monster Energy Attack Performance Yamaha Racing.
Awesome. That's two
Yeah,
times in a row you got the name right.
2 weeks in a row, man.
Yeah.
What's up, Richard?
Oh, everything's doing good.
Well, it should be.
Back from Laguna.
You just got back from Laguna after basically ruining everybody and hurting a lot of feelings.
Well, at least with one rider, yeah. So
At least one rider?
Yeah, I mean, we struggled a bit with Jake, but on Cameron's side, it was, a pretty flawless weekend. We got there. We immediately found out what we needed to do, did it, and destroyed everyone.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah, I mean, that's basically what I saw. I mean, I was somewhere else on Friday, so I didn't get to actually go there and see the practices and all that. But, I was there basically the rest of the weekend and, as a crew member. And it was great. You guys definitely got the job done. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, Friday we basically got there. Had a pretty decent idea from the season what setup would work good at that racetrack, because obviously nobody tested there,
Right.
and neither did we. But knowing the motorcycle after a whole season of racing, we knew, okay, we should probably go to this range of settings. And we went there and we calculated out what we had on gearing versus what they had on gearing last year, and what we ran with JD and what we ran with Heron when he did this 22.9. So we were able to find something that would work with our new swing arm and chassis combination. And yeah, so we didn't even touch gearing once when we got there. And the biggest thing we had to work with was some engine braking stuff, and that was about it.
Yeah, I mean, Cameron just looked like he was just hanging out, going for a Sunday ride. There was no drama at all.
Yeah, it was a polar opposite of Indy. No crashing, no drama, happy rider. I think he got his Moto2 contract thing out of the way. Yamaha released him when we were there, and then he was able to sign his contract and did all that stuff. And so he went into the weekend without all that stuff weighing on him. At Indy, we didn't really know what was going on. Cameron seemed a little bit off. He wasn't the happy camper we were used to all year long.
Yeah.
And so having that Moto2 thing, I think, hanging on his head, maybe they were still negotiating that, and they hadn't told Yamaha yet they were wanting to get released in the contract. So I'm sure they had all that weighing on him, and not a good thing to go to the racetrack with stuff in your head.
For sure.
Yeah, riders need to be basically brain empty.
So a couple of interesting things about this weekend also. I mean, there was quote unquote no fans, but it looked like a lot of people figured out a way around that because Laguna Seca is a county park, and there's a lot of camping around the racetrack park.
And I don't know what the deal is with camping, so I guess you can keep distant when you're camping.
Right.
But we also had because of COVID, we had something like 100 passes left over in our allocation.
Yeah.
So anyone that wanted a pass, I basically gave them one. Here you go. You're a guest of the team.
Yeah. I mean, the paddock was also interesting too, because when I rolled in Saturday, it looked like a baggers event that invited the Superbikes.
Yeah, it kind of looked that way, didn't it?
Yeah. I mean, those, the baggers kind of, as weird as they are or whatever. And I actually have a question for you from one of the guys that saw our previous show and saw your excitement level about the baggers. But, it looked like a lot of people were excited about it. And it was fun to watch. I mean, those guys they were ripping on stupid baggers. Like,
I didn't see any of it.
Yeah, well, you were in the garage hiding out from the tornado or whatever that was going through there, right? So
yeah, I heard a lot of noise outside the garage.
Oh yeah, they made a lot of noise, and they were going pretty good. I think that one dude went like a minute 36 on that thing, that's insane.
Who's that? O'Hara?
Yeah. Yeah, I think O'Hara. I think Frankie went 38. So I mean, to do that on those big, monstrous V-twin things, like, that's pretty impressive.
You know what it reminds me of? When I was in my younger years, my cousin and I had this Porsche we built, and we were hauling ass on the way to Malibu through Mulholland. So over there, Calabasas area, up over Mulholland, and so we're flying along down this long straightaway, and this crazy dude on a Harley, the thing with big old, ape hangers, went flying by us like we were both at the ground. I go, that guy's gonna die. And he went zooming around up and through the canyons, and away he went. I'm like, holy crap. So maybe that reminded me of that a little bit.
Yeah, so the guy, he's actually involved in our CRA race series. He's sort of, I guess you could say, the American Iron Rider rep. He actually kind of wrote the rules. His name's.
Oh, yeah, I see you got a logo there finally, huh?
Yeah, look at that.
It looks like a flash of some kind. Motorcycle and their letters. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
Can't wait to get on that racetrack.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, so Tony, his nickname or whatever is Tony Shreds. And he was like, hey, man, I want to hear if Richard's still as enthusiastic about the baggers as he was in the last show.
Oh, yeah. I'm on a scale of 1 to 10. I'm right there at 0.1.
Yeah.
Full enthusiasm.
Yeah. So the other thing we, Laguna also had the heritage thing going, the vintage bike guys.
Yeah, I saw that.
Did you watch any of that?
I saw some guy go down pit lane with a lot of oil smoke following him. So it must have been that.
Well, that's just how it's got oil in it still.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's what the bags were for on the baggers, with extra oil.
Well, no, we joked with Heron about this actually, and I think the baggers were so they could, line them with ice, and when they break down or whatever, you could crack open your Diet Coors.
Well, you need your bedroll, right? And your beer.
Right. Yeah.
You're set. You just push it off into the woods and you just go for a little camp out.
Yeah. So, Curtis Adams was out there, race director for CRA, actually.
Yeah.
Super nice guy, longtime friend of mine. And then I saw one of your old riders was out there, basically won the thing, the Thriller.
He was out there?
Mark Miller was out there on a vintage whatever.
Gosh, he didn't stop by and say hi. I wonder why. I
don't know, man. Like, he waved at me. He waved at me once, or gave me the head nod or whatever.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, hey, But yeah, he was riding a GS 1000 or something.
Right.
Curtis Adams was on. I guess he was there with Jeff Stern actually, and they were on some CB 750 or something that he had bought to do that, and they gridded him on. What?
Jeff was riding as well?
No, Jeff was Curtis's crew chief.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know if Jeff could fit in his leathers anymore. Sorry, Jeff.
Probably not, but he went pretty good in his day.
Oh, he sure did.
That dude had a lot of experience riding. I wouldn't knock him, that's for sure.
No, dude. Like, Jeff,
he is fat.
Jeff whooped my butt when I started getting to go pretty good. And, I got really close to beating him at Willow on my 636. And he was on his 1000 or whatever, or 750, I forget. But, the guy, he had a crew chief, he had a guy on the wall with a pit board. And as soon as he saw +0, he dropped a second like that. Like, the dude, he always just figured out ways to go as fast as he needed to go. And I was a stupid 20-something and thought I had it, and I really didn't, and I wasn't even close.
Yeah, because it's called the Rude Awakening.
Yeah. Actually, it's more like the reality check.
Yeah, either one.
Yeah, so Curtis was out there on a 750, and they gridded him on the second wave, and I guess it was 2 waves but 1 start. And by the end of the first lap, Curtis had passed all the 1000 guys and was running down Mark Miller, but he had like 25-mile-an-hour deficit or whatever on the straightaways on that thing. So, Miller's bike was ripping. So, but I think still slower than the fastest bagger, oddly enough.
Slower than a bagger?
I think so. Yeah, I think they were doing 40s as their best, and I think the bagger dudes were under 40s.
I can't even imagine that.
I can't either, man. Like,
I mean, those vintage bikes, I think in a couple of years, Pridmore's Formula Extreme bike we won our first championship on will be eligible for that class.
right. Yeah.
And I know he could probably still do 28s or 9s on that thing.
Probably.
Easily.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the questions I had was, well, somebody, I'll give them credit for this. They want to know, oh, they have like a weird username, something, but HRC something. They want to know, never mind the racing, they want to know what you're going to be for Halloween.
Yeah, I don't do Halloween. If the Grinch had Halloween, that'd be him.
Nice. And then, I promised I would ask this.
I'm going to be a team owner working at the shop for Halloween.
Is there a possibility of an attack Yamaha bagger?
When I get the other 99.9% enthusiasm, yes.
I mean, Yamaha, that department or whatever, they wave a big check and say, hey, build this, you'd be down, right?
If it was in my contract, I'd do it.
Got it.
I would just, right on, man. I'm making you a bagger.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It brought eyes to the sport that normally aren't on our sport. So
yeah, I would have like high lean angle bags.
Yeah. I mean, I guess those guys, some of them put some serious work into those things,
Oh, no, there was definitely a builder class.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I heard some numbers thrown around. I don't know how accurate it was, but somebody was saying a couple of them were like 150 grand kind of build.
I bet. I mean, the show was good. I mean, it was too bad there was no fans there because they had a lot of nice trucks and they had a lot of nice equipment. And Barnett was there and PM was there and Saddleman was there. I mean, all these kind of high-end manufacturing style companies were there.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a cool presentation.
Absolutely.
Just not my thing.
Yeah, it kind of didn't really make the whole lack of fan thing doesn't really make any sense.
No, it kind of ruined it because the whole bagger thing should be a kind of a fun class for the fans,
Well, there was a lot,
You know what it reminds me of? Did you have donkey basketball when you were in high school or junior high school or something like that?
No, dude.
Okay, my high school, they would bring
I told you this, man. We had a rodeo team or whatever.
Oh, yeah. You went to some hillbilly place.
Right.
But anyway, in a nice kind of way.
Right.
Our junior high school had this like donkey basketball, and it was the teachers versus the students on donkeys. And they would go, back and forth and try to get a basket in. It was like basketball, but it wasn't.
Right.
That's what it kind of reminds me of.
I mean, it's just kind of I think it's just a fun thing that can attract new fans to the sport, maybe, But I will tell you this, Ludwig and I went up to the top of the corkscrew during that bagger race, and there was a lot of people up there. Like you would have never known that it was a no fans allowed event because there was a lot of people up there.
Well, it's probably all the crew that came with the baggers and all the guests.
I don't know, man. I mean, it looked like the campsites were pretty full. So pretty much everybody that was camping was up there watching that thing. So, yeah, it was kind of interesting. Like I said, a lot of people figured out the loophole into going to Laguna to watch the races, and the only difference was they couldn't do the paddock thing and go and browse the vendors that are there because there were no vendors there.
There are no vendors.
Nope.
This whole COVID thing is becoming a bummer.
Dude, it is, man. But the season's over, you've got a big old number 1 plate for the shop, which is awesome.
And a team trophy too.
Yeah, and you got a crew chief of the year too, right?
Yeah, it looks just like this one with different engraving. It just says.
It looks just like that one. I recognize it because it was in my throat.
Yeah, I was trying to do one of these because it looks like kind of a weapon.
Pretty much.
When I was in Moscow, they had like this captured weapons thing from way back, and when the Russian army was, the Tsar's army, and they had all kinds of cool weapons like this, It's amazing.
So, okay, so let's go into some of the action stuff. Yeah, I mean, look, we don't need to go lap by lap into practice, but you know, there's a couple things I noticed. I mean, like how does by the end of qualifying, Cameron was like almost a second and a half ahead of everyone else. Like, how the hell does he do that?
Well, that place is a real flowing track, and also it's a roller coaster track. So the bike has a lot of pitch and has a lot of G outs. So as soon as we got there, we put a setup on the bike before we even started that was good for a pitchy G out type track. And then we started inching up on the front settings to make it so you can brake real comfortably into turn 2 and turn 8, which is turn 2 is the U-turn at the bottom of the, you know, at the end of the straightaway, I guess, because turn 1 is kind of just an arced hill. Right. So turn 2 is that basically that 180 at the bottom. And then also turn 5 is pretty heavy on the front because it goes into the face of a banking. So we made some adjustments on the front with oil level and spring. We didn't even change the damping. Also, we didn't even change a clicker on the bike. We changed springs and oil, and that was it. Change oil level, threw some springs in it. We didn't change the rear spring. We didn't change the ride heights. We didn't change anything on the bike, and he did laps. And he just kept saying, I need to get into this corner a little better. I need to get into this corner. So everything was about getting into the corner. The power out, the TC, and the anti-wheelie was all pretty good. And I just kept freeing it up so you can go a little faster because he arced a little more than JD did. And the software we were on with Heron was a little bit different when he broke the track record. And he was also on a real qualifying tire where we never had a real qualifier this last weekend. We had basically soft race tires.
Right.
And Cameron got close within a couple tenths. And the real qualifiers were worth about a second back then, if I remember right. You know, maybe a little bit more because the track has so many corners that are on this edge of the tire. Like all coming down turn 9, which is rainy corner, and then 10, it's all like fairly high speed, leaned over for a long amount of time. You're trying to open the throttle. So those kinds of corners really do well with a qualifying tire. So we show up and we just keep working towards a feeling he wants in the front. So you can brake real hard. As soon as you get off the truck, it's like, I can't go as deep as I want it to. I need more engine braking. But as soon as he says that, I understand it's not really the engine braking. It's the fact he can't grab the brakes. He's already at the bottom of the stroke and things like that. Same with most of the corners. So he was really using, you know, in excess of 10 bar of brake pressure everywhere. And so we just started heading that direction, and we just kept getting better and better and better. And then we just tweaked the engine braking and things like that to suit what he wanted. And there was a couple areas where engine braking was a little bit more difficult to get right.
So on, I think it was Sunday morning, I show up to the garage and you had Sven there.
Yeah.
Your buddy.
Sven Raz.
Your data nerd buddy. And
yeah, he does it for a hobby. He's actually an engineer who's also a lawyer, patent lawyer.
So he was kind of looking at you, making sure it was okay while he walked me through some of the data. And it was pretty interesting. There was a couple of spots where I saw that that you know Cameron's giving 100% on the throttle, but you're only giving him like 83%. So
yeah, so there's a couple places on the track where the bike will wheelie a lot, and you really want the guy to be able to just accelerate enough to not wheelie. And then you also you don't want to do all the power. You keep working on the chassis so the bike will accelerate, not wheelie.
Right.
But then you accent that with how much power you give it, and then you accent that again with the amount of cut you give it for the wheelie control. So it's all different levels. First, you start with, let's make the chassis as good as possible so it'll accelerate. So for that track, you have kind of a relatively low motorcycle, not super low. You just have to be able to lean it over. That's long. You know, our bike's relatively long anyway compared to the Yamaha bikes from last year. They're quite a bit longer, probably a lot more like the World Superbikes lengthwise. And so we just keep trucking along at making the chassis accelerate, not too stiff on the rear, not too soft, those kinds of things. So the thing will mechanically not wheelie that much. And then we will take and turn the power down in the areas we need to keep the front wheel down And then for the shifts and the way the bike jerks, sometimes we'll add a little bit of wheelie control on top of that to keep the thing from, to hover basically like the MotoGP bikes do, just a little bit off the tire. Yeah.
It looked like a lot of riders were struggling with that sort of thing, and you guys had it kind of figured out. I watched Bobby Fong in the practice sessions, and his bike looked like my bike, right? Like just wheeling everywhere. I mean, it's probably really hard to ride like that and try to go fast. It's got to be a super distraction.
Well, I mean, in fairness, those guys, that's their first year on that bike.
Mm-hmm.
They rode something with a different electronics. I think it was Motec.
Right.
Previous year. And Bobby was on 600. So in all fairness, that's his first year. And again, first time at that track with that motorcycle, those electronics. So they probably brought in some stuff they learned from the previous tracks. But Laguna is this is kind of a unique track, just like Ridge is a unique track, and Pittsburgh's a unique track, and Indy's a unique track. All the tracks we go to, no two of them are kind of the same. They're all a little bit different. So you can't point at one and go, oh, our bike went good at Barber, so therefore I'll put that setup on it and I'll be bitching at Laguna. Doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah, you have to have a little bit of history, a little bit of knowledge, and then apply the tools you're given.
Hey, you just put the button willow set up for Laguna, right?
Actually, that track, it worked fairly well for going to Road America. We had that button willow set up at Road America. What, did he win by 12 seconds when we showed up?
Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty good.
So going back to the data stuff too, another area I saw is that I thought was interesting is that the amount of lean angle that Cameron's getting. I mean, I don't know what Jake's getting because I didn't get to see his data. Paul was kind of like hiding it, but 63 degrees at the top.
Yeah, some places he gets quite a bit of lean angle, but you got to also take,
isn't it?
Yeah, you got to take into consideration the track's banked, so that multiplies the lean angle.
Right.
So then there's some tricks you got to do with offsetting the lean angle to make all the traction control tables. It's something we kind of worked with at Barber. We struggled with turn 2 at Barber because it's so banked. So there's a little bit of that happening here, but most of the corners flatten out. Like turn 5 will be banked and then it'll flatten out. So traction control actually works okay coming up out of there because the table starts maybe at high angle in the middle, but then it'll taper off into the right area.
Yeah. So, I at the end of qualifying too, I wanted to bring up something I actually saw. I don't know if you saw this or whatever, but it looked like there was a little bit of Zanetti and Josh Herron drama on the last lap of qualifying. I guess Zanetti was kind of touring and kind of cock blocked Josh a little bit there.
Well, Zanetti,
like fist waving and
Josh got wound up, like all riders do. But Zanetti was someplace on the racetrack he shouldn't have been.
Right.
Like exit of 9, you don't go to the outside of the track and go slow. And I know how Josh rides. He uses all the racetrack out there. Like when he did his 22.9, I thought he was going to run off on the outside edge of 9, where Cameron doesn't quite use all that racetrack. But Zanetti was just sitting there on the outside of 9, like, oh, I'm going slow out here. Nobody goes out here. Well, if you're slow, you don't go out there. Right. But if you're trying to put in a fast lap, you're using a lot of that racetrack. And there he is on the fastest part of the acceleration, just touring along. He should have been on the inside of 9 with his leg off. And then Josh could have gone around the outside of him, on his qualifying lap. So yeah, Josh was probably a little frustrated with how good he was going or how bad he was going, Yeah,
I mean, he's had some struggles on that thing at the end.
Probably not all motorcycle. I'm sure the motivation factor it plays a big part with any rider. So it doesn't matter how talented or fast you are, and if you own a track record or not. If things don't go right, the first session and not the second session and things like that, kind of like the way our downward spiral was at Indy. We had a crash straight away in the first race. We had a crash in the second session on the first day, in qualifying. So that kind of made the downward spiral that much easier to have.
Another thing I noticed is that, I mean, it just seems like Jake is, almost. He's just almost. He seemed close in all the cues, and in FP3 he was you know, he's just right there. And then that dude just had, if he didn't have any bad luck, he wouldn't have any luck at all. I mean, tell me a little bit about what happened to him in race 1 with the fuel pump. Like, what was the deal there?
Yeah, just fuel pump died. You know, it started going extremely lean down the straightaway. He was having a good outing. I think that was Jake's outing this last time was kind of like Cameron's outing at Indy, but without any crashes.
Right.
You know, so yeah, it was weird. We haven't failed the fuel pump all year, and all of a sudden the thing started going lean down the straightaways, and you can only get half throttle. So yeah, so he just finished off race 1. I think he finished 4th.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so just barely off the podium. He was in a good spot. He was in 2nd. You know, and I think he'd have held on to that. He qualified 2nd, and he was easy on the clutch on the starts. You know, he was able to do a bunch of starts on the clutch and kind of got over the murdering the clutch thing. And you know, it's a first year thing, I think, also.
Yeah.
Just like Bobby's having a first year thing, and all these other guys having a first year thing. You know, it's just a matter of all the stars haven't aligned for him quite yet. But I think once they do, I mean, he puts in, if you watch the effort, like every session he goes out and boom, he's P1.
Oh, yeah.
You know, straight away, the first flyer, he's red, you know, and he keeps trying to do that.
He's the most exciting rider to watch right now. I mean, the dude is just, you know.
Yeah, he's very animated on the bike.
Yes.
We're trying to smooth that out.
It looked like he was kind of struggling with that wheelie stuff you were talking about a little bit too. You know, and I don't know exactly what that is. You know.
Well, you know, we have 2 teams, and then we have 2 electronics guys, myself and Paul.
Right.
And Paul had some connections with the Morelli guys and MotoGP, so he's got a little bit different strategy going on with the anti-wheelie and the amount of power he's applying compared to what I'm giving Cameron. And so I think Jake got used to it. It's a little more lively motorcycle than what I'm used to giving the rider. Right. Ours is probably, if somebody rode it, they'd be like, wow, this thing's slow. You know, it feels like a 600, you know, but you got to ride it, right?
Right.
So you can pin it everywhere kind of thing. Where his is probably a little less pin it everywhere and a little more tire spin, a little more anti-wheelie. So there's a lot of forces acting on it, and then Jake's another force acting on it as well.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a pretty lively motorcycle. I think this winter when we start testing, I think we'll work on dumbing all that down. Maybe take some of the stuff we've learned on Cameron's and start applying to Jake and see if he can get used to it.
Well, we got that day on December 7th. You know, maybe you guys come out and see what's up.
That's when I'm going to come out and ride it myself.
Oh, well.
The riders should stay home.
Yeah, let those guys stay home. You come out and ride. That'd be great. Yeah.
I have to dump down the power even more for me.
Yeah. Well, you know, you got the control. Let's do some fan questions. Let's see.
Sure.
This guy named Rafa Z, he wants to know if you were to build and compete in Stock 1000 next season, what would it be? Would it Yamaha and Cowie seem to be the best choices at the moment?
Well, we already did that game. We helped Mean Racing in 16. I think we won like 7 or 8 races in a row and won the championship a weekend early.
Right.
So, yeah, we do a Yamaha R1. I mean, the kit ECUs are really good for those things, the 2020 R1, and they have a lot of the strategies already built on the back end. They're pretty damn good. And so, yeah, we just come out with an R1 and smash everyone with it.
Well, there you go.
Depends on the rider, really.
Yeah.
It's a pretty easy motorcycle to set up and race. And of course, we have real good, you know, Superbike information. So to be able to dumb it down, it wouldn't be that hard.
I mean, there's a customer of mine that's got a brand new bitchin', you know, BMW Superstock 1000 bike, and man, it's a great bike, but he just can't seem to gel with the thing. So he's telling me he's going to dump it and get another R1, you know?
Well, like I said, it's kind of like the race proven thing. Maybe difference between like a Porsche and a Ferrari. You get a lot of parts for the Porsche. You know, they're really easy to work on. They last forever. The Ferrari looks good. Take it to the shop a lot. Drive it to the grocery store. Take it back to the shop. You know.
Right.
So you're not really racing the Ferrari. You're kind of looking at it more than you are racing it. Where the Porsche, you can beat the crap out of it.
Yeah, it's like go to Starbucks in the Ferrari, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Cars and coffee. Cars and coffee. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Nice. And then Rich Hua says, do you think the Bagger race was a one-off?
I don't know. I think the MotoAmerica guys were pretty impressed by the turnout, so maybe they'll bring back some more, and maybe it'll be serious baggers. I don't know.
Yeah, Ludwig and I were leaving the track Saturday night, and we kind of ran into that Robbie Floyd dude, and he was telling us that they had planned maybe 3 or 4 rounds for next year for that. So I don't know how true that is, because that guy's information sometimes it's a bit sus, as my brother would say. But
who's Robbie Floyd?
He's one of the announcer dudes with Roger Lee.
Oh, that guy. Okay,
Yeah.
That's what his name is.
Yeah.
I remember now. That's what his name was. He came from motocross, something.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I said, sometimes his info is a bit sus, but
yeah, his info's a little off at times, but he's all right.
Yeah,
he's motivated.
And then let's see. Will Monty says he wants to know what's the big difference between running the attack bike that Josh and JD were running and what your guys are running now?
Well, the bike we're on now, what's the biggest difference?
Yeah.
Let me see here. Well, other than the rider, the next biggest difference was the swing arm and the fuel tank and the center of gravity on the bike. And it's a 2020 bike. And, but most everything else, like the basic concept of the motorcycle is about the same, so it's just basically a 3rd generation swing arm. Maybe it's a 4th generation now. And then the fuel tank's a few generations in. And that's where the center of gravity plays a lot. And also the frames changed a little bit as far as the swing arm pivot work that we did.
Right.
So some of the setup info is a little bit different. So basically it's a fine tuning of the ones that we had back then. Probably the biggest thing is the fuel tank shape. It's one of the things that Cameron went after straight away. We spent a lot of time on the fuel tank shape so he can position himself properly on the bike.
So Joseph Sfume, he says that Jake looks like he's throwing a supermoto around.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah.
I think me and you talked about that a little bit.
Right.
Where he pushes the bike down and then brings his body over to match.
Yeah.
I talked to Jake about that a little bit as well.
Yeah, I mean, it looked to me like he was, he kind of gets out there and he's got his elbows out, right? He pushes the bike down, and then when he gets his knee on the ground, he kind of bends at the waist after.
Yeah, he does that.
So.
Yeah, another one of our winter projects.
Yeah. No, it just
does. Well, I told him to ditch the dirt bike and get Yamaha, get him a road racer.
Yeah.
Put a few parts on it, and he can go to all your little track things.
Dude, I told him to come out and just ride one of our
laps because he's in San Diego, so that's whatever it is, 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
Cruise up there and do some riding for a day or two and work on the style. And I think he can smash everyone next year if he just works on a few different things and we get the bike a little more mellowed out for him.
Well, like you said, Cameron won by whatever in the championship, but if Cameron wasn't there, then that would be Jake with a 40-point lead or whatever.
Yeah, he would have had the championship by 40 points.
All right.
It was a pretty good 1-2 finish, but I think we just made a little less mistakes than the rest of the teams did. Cameron was Cameron, obviously. We hit it off real well as a rider and crew chief electronics combo. Our information sharing was really, really good. And him riding at a high level like that from the very first test really helped us develop the motorcycle. And I think us developing the motorcycle helped him as far as understanding what these things can do. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah. So let's see what else we got a few other questions. Will Monty also he's like, JD still wearing the attack leathers, is that saying something for next year?
It's saying he had a couple of leathers in his closet that were real easy to put on and go road racing. And it said Estenson on it. I don't think he minded the attack performance on it as well.
Hey, he still had the TrackDaz on there too. So
yeah, there you go. So I said hi to him and good luck and all that kind of good stuff. And how was the flat tracker going? And let me know if there's anything I can do to help.
That's so cool. Like he he's such a nice guy, you know. He just,
He is.
man, it was good to see him back, and it shows, that R6 is pretty competitive still. I mean, JD hadn't ridden that thing in 2 years. He goes out there and he's running in the front right away. So.
Yeah, that kind of shows you the level that those guys are at. Sometimes is deceiving when there isn't a lot of competition. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, wow, those guys are going really good, but maybe they're not going all that good because the guy can take a year off and come back and still finish on the podium and challenge for the lead and things like that.
Right.
So it makes me kind of scratch my head and wonder, are they really going that good or not?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's no way to find out unless the other people are out there winning or whatever, right?
Right.
So, all right. So let's see. Back to the action stuff. Race 1, Cameron wins by 12 seconds, and I was there. It looked like he was kind of mailing it in like the last 5 laps.
Yeah, it could have been a lot more than that. His pace by the time he got to race 3 would have put him on the World Superbike podium.
Yes.
And I mean, he did a 23.1 solo, which is faster than his qualifying on a race tire that was supposed to go 20 laps, not just 2. And I think the fastest lap in the World Superbike race was like a 22.9 or something like that.
22.9, yeah.
But Cameron's doing it by himself. So can you imagine if he was mixing it up with Ray and Davies that weekend?
Right.
He'd been right there in the mix. He would have been doing 22s also.
Yeah.
And then those guys slowed down to 24s at the end. And, it was funny because I told Cameron, I said, so here's a plan. You're going to go out, you're going to do some 23s, and you're going to break everyone, and you're going to settle into a pace of about low 24s and maybe do a couple of high 24s at the end.
Right.
And he laughed at me like, haha, like I was kidding. And then he goes out and does a string of 23s, slows down to 24s. Then he does a couple of high 24s, and then his long hair gets in his eyes and starts doing 25s and 26s. He said he was mailing it in at the end.
Well, that's what it looks like. But it always looks like that dude's mailing it in.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, every lap, it looks like he's going to pull in because he just doesn't have that. He's not an exciting rider to watch because he looks so slow. To
me, it's exciting because when you watch like the rear view coming out of turn 3, you can see how he slides the bike all the way to the curbing.
Oh, yeah.
And how the electronics are holding it in one spot and how the chassis is doing what it's supposed to do.
But he
himself is not really cool.
I mean, he's just kind of like on the top of the thing. And
yeah, I mean, if you watch him going into turn 8 and he gets through 7 where he bends right and then he flips it left and the back end just skids just right and it drops in the apex and it drops in the apex to the right and coming down the corkscrew and it just looks like a ballet. You're like, wow, that's a fast lap. You can see it's a fast lap.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, it looks like a ballet. It doesn't look like a, Metallica concert or something,
Metallica concerts don't work, man, for road racing.
Oh,
you end up with P4, P5. They're fun to listen to, but you don't ride a motorcycle like that.
Right. Okay. I got you.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see. So Sunday morning warm up, we were about to go out and then this crazy fog was there and it was like, it almost was like raining.
It was
right?
Basically there was enough moisture, it got the track wet. And it was so wet up at the top of the corkscrew that some guys fell down. Yeah,
I mean, you guys rolled the bike out because I know you wanted to have Cameron test something real quick. And he was like, yeah, okay. He goes up and we're literally watched Kyle Wyman just stack at the top of the corkscrew and like skitching along the side of the bike with the corner workers down the hill. And Cameron turned right back around, went right back in the garage, and Jake did the same thing. And the boys.
Well, I told Cameron, just go out and get a lap. He's like, man, it's really wet out there. Cameron was kind of skidding his feet on the pavement. Mm-hmm. I go, it's different on the racetrack than it is here in the garage, but yeah, it's pretty wet. And he goes, man, is it worth it for us to go out? I go, oh, you just need to go out and check this one sensor, make sure. We had one sensor that was going down, one of the O2 sensors in one of the pipes. And it was starting to get some erroneous readings. I go, just go out and make sure that one we put in is functioning fine. So we went out, did a lap, came back in. And then we just hung out. And after people started crashing, and then the Junior Cup race, I guess people stacked up over there.
All right.
Tom, the Dunlop guy, comes in. I go, so I'm thinking we're going to start with reds. tire-wise, like the two softest combos we have? He's like, absolutely not. I go, greens, you know, and which is the next harder? He goes, no, full wets. I'm like, there's no standing water. So I was kind of scratching my head. You're like, I think when everyone started kind of falling down, he kind of overreacted a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, so I was like, okay. So we set up the bike for full wets, thinking that maybe he knows something we don't know. So we start changing setup and changing electronics and all that stuff, put on full wets. And sure enough, for race 2, he rolls out there and because race 2 was 11, right? And
Yeah.
practice was like 8:55 or something
Right.
like that. So it wasn't very much time between that practice and race 2. And so it wasn't enough time for the track to fully dry. So Cameron goes out and does a lap. He's like, it's too dry for wets. You know, so we put on the reds and we changed the settings back, and then we put on the dry setup, but with just a lot more traction control.
Right.
Yeah, so he went out and just raced that and killed everyone.
I mean, it looked like everybody went to full slicks. I mean, I don't think anybody had anything but slicks on.
There's no way that, I mean, we did 1 lap or 2 laps, whatever it was, to give us some 10-minute sighting lap, so you can go out and do some laps. And our wets were already getting torn up. I go, if you left wets on there, you'd be finishing last.
Well, at the start of race 2, I watched, and the guys kind of went through turn 3 and 4, and one of the guys, the privateer dudes, Jeremy Coffey, just stacked. Like, I guess he touched the paint a little bit, and that was all she wrote. And that poor dude,
I'm surprised.
End over end.
I'm surprised because that place has FIM paint, the grippy stuff.
Yeah.
That paint's really good in the wet. So I'm really surprised. You know, I wonder if something else happened. But
well, I mean, just going by what the dude said on,
Yeah. I'm trying to think of where he would touch the paint coming out of there. Because he crashed almost straight up and down. So I don't think he was all the way to the left or all the way to the right. Yeah. Kind of weird.
He kind of tipped in there, and his bike, I mean, it just...
Yeah, I saw it.
Violent cartwheeling, like, oh my God, like that privateer guy, So,
yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, so that dude's got pretty hefty build, I'm sure. I don't know if he was able to get back going for the rest of the weekend, but
I don't know. I think it was his second crash in that corner.
He crashed in turn 3 earlier.
Oh, 3. Yeah, didn't he crash in 3 again?
Yeah, he crashed in 3 in the morning, I think, or on
and then
Saturday,
once in the race.
And then he crashed in 4 during,
Oh, he crashed in 4 in the race.
He crashed in 4 in the race.
Oh, I thought he crashed in 3. So yeah, he might have been on the curbing there, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it sucks. Yeah, but Cam still, with the iffy conditions, he still won by 10.5 seconds.
Yeah.
And Jake, I don't know what happened to him. He was going good, and then he ended up in P4.
Yeah, that was a miscommunication between me and his data guy, because I brought my computer over to the wall and I popped the dry map into, basically it's just the TC is a little bit different. And then we switched tire diameters on the buttons on the dash. And anyway, I popped that into Cam's, and then he leans over, he says, hey man, can you put your gain map, which is the gain is like the multiplier for the traction control. You tell it basically how much power of traction control you want.
Right.
And can you put that in Jake's bike? And I said, sure, but I pushed all of Cameron's calibration file into his map, into his bike.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you end up with all of Cameron's settings. But see, there's a couple of things that we work on. There's one that's called the base map.
Yeah.
There's one which is all the tuning stuff, which is calibration. But if you make the base map strong, and then you tune on top, and then you tune on it weak, then you have a certain type of configuration. If you make the base map weak and then your tuning is strong, then your configuration is different. So Paul's base map is different than mine, so the two things didn't gel very well. So Jake kind of struggled trying to figure out what the bike was doing for that race.
Okay.
So that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think you had some colorful version of saying that you gave him a jacked up map.
I gave him a map that went 23-1, but
right.
The back end wasn't the same.
Right.
Yeah.
So here's a couple more fan questions. First of all, Kyle Wyman talking about that morning warm-up. Kyle says, yep, he's a little bit eager on his part. So
I don't know what you mean.
When he at the corkscrew.
Oh, yeah. Well, Kyle wanted to go fast, right? He was doing good too, that weekend. It's too bad he crashed the thing.
Yeah.
I think he was one of the only guys in 24s in QP1.
Yep.
There's only 3 of us or 4 of us. I think Kyle was one of them.
Yeah, and he's doing it on the Ducati that is not the Corsa Ducati. So not bad. The other questions, let's see. Truck Time Focus says it's interesting to hear that the button wheel setup worked well at MotoAmerica. What chassis changes do you focus on in a weekend? Is it mostly spring and valving, length, height, rake?
Yes. I mean, all of the above. It depends. Okay. We tailor it to where our needs are. The rake, we pretty much use the same rake all year. So we found a position which the guys are comfortable with, and we tune the offset on that. But honestly, once the riders usually find a setup, like the Yamaha is really forgiving from track to track. So same thing with Heron. When he really was comfortable on our bike, we would go from track to track, and sometimes we wouldn't even touch a clicker. We might do a couple turns on the front. With Cameron, he brakes so freaking hard and uses the brakes while leaned over so much. We have to be a little bit more conscious of how much spring and oil level to put in the forks.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we did do kind of a circle of heights. When we went to Indy, we went pretty high, then we went back down a little bit because the lean angle was so high and the bike was dragging, and I think it low centered. And the one time we crashed, but he thought I lost the front. So one or the other, but the thing was so close to the lean angle was so high that we were just trying to get a little more change direction and things like that. But I mean, you find the weakness in the bike, the rider points it out on a map, and then you find the best solution for that. It's chassis, electronics, or whatever.
So, the race 3, same story. Cam goes and just does what Cam does. And then, Jake got going pretty good early, and then he just kind of fell back a little bit. I think he ended up 5th. But it was kind of cool to see, it's kind of rare actually this year to have 3 different manufacturers on the podium.
Yeah. Don't know what to make of that, but okay.
I mean, Tony Elias.
Tony had a good weekend for
the
most part, which is, his swan song, I guess. But
yeah, it was. He had a weird season for him, and
nice guy. I wish we would have gone a little better. We he was our motivation to build the bike and do the testing we did. So thanks, Tony. But he kind of motivated us to make sure we got our shit together before we went to the first race.
Yeah.
COVID hit and we couldn't go to the first race, and so on and so on. Couldn't test, and the whole story. But we expected to be racing against him and Bobby the whole year, and it didn't quite turn out that way. But he did have a good run at the end. Yeah,
there was actually because the Ducati was on the. I've got a question from somebody. His name is Joe Sven again, or Sven. He's like, he says he wants to know if quote Corsa Gate happened and HSBK swapped that transmission to be compliant.
Oh, I don't know.
Corsa Gate.
Corsa Gate. Corsa Ship Gate. I don't know. I mean, Laguna is a different animal. I don't think. I mean, a gearbox could have helped there. If you had a close gearbox, you could have probably made better use of 6th going over the rise there. But we used 1st through 6th.
Right.
1st and turn 11 and 6th going over the rise. It's an interesting track. You see the World Superbikes. So just shift all the way over that thing.
Yeah.
But then there isn't that much shifting on the rest of the racetrack. It's this interesting racetrack and the way the gearbox works. But I imagine if we had our option to a couple different ratios, we could probably make the bike a couple tenths faster. And there we are, racing for P1 and World Superbike. Yeah.
Right.
At least at that track. On Dunlops, mind you. So,
and then let's go through some fan questions. That Will Monty guy again. He's
The full Monty?
Will Monty.
Okay.
What kind of success do you think Cam's going to find in Moto2 with staff and support? What staff and support will he have over there?
That'll be the question mark. I'm not sure. I don't know the team that well. You know, I'd gladly answer a few, you know, questions, but I don't know the Calex, so it's kind of a waste of time. But I think that they're probably coming off a pretty decent season for them with Joe, so they probably have some pretty decent information for him.
Yeah.
And knowing Cameron, he'll just kind of get along with a motorcycle. Once they find a setup that he kind of likes, it won't be that different from track to track. You know, so it might be okay because you know, they have some electronic stuff, and Cameron's pretty switched on with electronics now, and engine braking and all those kinds of things. So he might be able to help those guys develop that motorcycle because he rides at such a high level. I mean, how competitive he'll be, I imagine he'll take a bit to get going because he has to learn the racetracks.
Right.
So it'd be interesting to see. I mean, it's a huge question mark, right?
Doesn't he know some of the racetracks or most of them because he was a Red Bull rookie?
Yeah, you know, he does, you know, from a decade ago.
Right.
You know, and he knew Indy from 2015, but when he showed up on our motorcycle at that racetrack, that he rode a completely different motorcycle. It wasn't even really developed in 2015, it just came out.
Moto2 bike, the Kalex is quite a bit different than that Rookies Cup bike.
Yeah, so he felt like he didn't even know Indy when he showed up, other than he knew which way it went. You know, so I think that if those guys do some testing with him, but there's a test ban, you know, so I don't know how it's going to go. I know they have a Honda bike, I guess, a Honda version of the Cadillacs that they can test here locally. And so that'd be interesting to see how he goes. The best thing to do is if you got that Honda powered thing and went to Buttonwillow and see how close you can get the Superbike times.
Right.
If you can get the Superbike times on a track like that, I think he's going to do really well.
So how about some other stuff? We had some people that, you know, like Nick Canepa,
yeah,
on the Westby bike. You know, there was a lot of talk about him being, you know, a world guy, and he kind of coming over here after seeing what Zanetti did at Indy. You know, there was kind of some talk about that dude kind of doing the whip up on the USA guys, and well, not so much.
Yeah, you know, Zanetti or the Ducati or something got along with the Dunlops a lot better than Canepa did. You know, our Dunlops are different than the ones in Europe. And so the Moto2 Dunlops are a little rounder, so they're a little bit more predictable from side to side. And Cameron actually got a chance to ride that tire at Ridge on our motorcycle for one session. And he really liked that tire. And he says, it does everything right. He said, and then they gave us another generation of Dunlop, which was taller in the middle again. And he said, that one does everything wrong, you know? So like it has this big vague spot from the peak to the edge. And our current Dunlop, I think, has a little bit of that also. That's why I think Matt Schultz had such a hard time getting used to it when we switched the bigger tires. For us, for Josh Herron, for instance, it was like, wow, that was great. You know, he started going way faster as soon as we got that tire. And I think Cameron did as well, but they don't spend much time changing direction. You know, they go from leaned over left to leaned over right, like all in one movement. So you kind of get that confidence of flipping the thing from side to side and go past that vague spot. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe I think Canepa is having a hard time with that, and also the front feel and things like that, because the guy was running, I think, Bridgestones for Yart, you know, the world team, and I think did they win the championship? I think Yart won the championship, didn't they?
I think so.
They won some races. They might have won it, and so he's no slouch. He's actually a test rider for YME as well. You know, Yamaha for the World Superbikes, he tests their bikes, so he knows electronics. He knows the bikes real well. The hardest thing for him was just getting used to those tires. And Laguna is one of those tracks where you flip left to right. You know, you're on the edge of the tire a lot.
So Track Time Focus has another question. Do you guys run the same map the entire race? He says this is a tire wear question.
That weekend, I think we left the traction alone.
Okay.
Yeah, so we worked on the chassis a little bit, but we didn't change the bike hardly at all. Like I said, it was mainly working on the front, and we picked up a little chatter at some point, and we defeated that. And that's about all we did. We didn't even change the ride height in the rear at all, or change the spring or anything, or the traction mounts. So it was, our bike's pretty well settled at this point. So it'd be interesting, whoever they get to replace Cameron with, how well they get along with the bike right away. But we didn't do that much with as far as the maps go. But some tracks we do.
So I also think for the weekend it's kind of good to see some different people out there. Some of those stock 1,000 guys coming out and racing Superbike. Cam Peterson's been doing that all year. But I mean, dude, Uribe, the firefighter dude, was out there on a Honda, like the lone Honda guy. And then Michael Gilbert was on Aussie Dave's Suzuki
right
thing. And then and Andy DeBrino came down to ride. So,
yeah, that's cool. Yeah, no, it was a decent turnout. I think we had a really big turnout at Indy. It was like 30 bikes.
Yeah.
Like so I hope the MotoAmerica guys take notice, and they actually maybe help some of these other guys come up, because they have the ability to do so. Maybe help some of the lower teams kind of get up there, because I think it's kind of dumb to slow down the fast guys. It doesn't make it boring that the fast guy is fast. It makes it boring when the other guys are too slow to catch the fast guy.
Right.
You got to help those guys go faster, not slow down everyone.
Right. All right. So let's go through some pre-questions. People were asking stuff. Obviously, I actually bolded this one because it's a weekly one that we get from Duffy.
Okay. Yeah. Does he come up with any money yet, Duffy?
You know the question, right?
Yeah. Put Heron on the bike.
Yeah. Yeah. You build Heron. Is Heron going to take the bike?
Well, I mean, I just heard today that, just asking how many riders have been asking for a ride. They got like 20.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
20.
I've got a healthy
some
list.
Some of them pretty interesting.
Yeah.
At a high level.
Okay. So let's see. Dean Dufresne. Hopefully I pronounced that right. He says it's,
you should probably just use their last initial.
Okay. So he wants to know, it's the beginning of the off season. How about I give you a webinar about setting up the laptop screen to review data about what he's looking at? Something simple like an AIM Solo 2 DL.
Okay, Dean. Let's do that.
Like, I actually kind of poked fun at him a little bit. I was like, dude, they're not using AIM Solo DL stuff, man. But
yeah, I'll be doing one of these.
Yeah. Sven was giving me crap about Solo DL, and now the Superbike Unlimited dude's gonna trade it for that dash that we were talking about. So
the difference between an AIM trace and a Morelli setup. One looks like you were drawing on a chalkboard with a piece of chalk, or Crayola. That's what the AIM stuff reminds me of, Crayola on the screen. And you go like, hey, can I do a math channel? Oh, you can't really do any decent math. Maybe the new stuff you can.
Okay, so Ryan Carson says, would attack support Cameron in Moto 2? Not sure what capacity that, if you could, and in GP if he makes it there.
Those teams are pretty switched on, man.
Kalex Rusets.
I mean, I know the guy who does electronics for the Yamaha team in GP, but
right.
I don't know what I could tell them. They're pretty high level. I think they got like people smarter than me over there. So I think they're fine.
All right, so let's go into the giant elephant in the room, I guess. I got a few fan questions about this too, but everybody wants to know, who's gonna fill the seat, and I've got a pretty funny list. You want to hear?
Okay.
So yeah, we talked about it.
I'll put on my poker face.
Yeah. Jake Zimke's not doing anything, so that guy went pretty fast on a Superbike.
Yeah, Jake Zemke, he might have the ride.
Yeah. And then let's see. Chris Ulrich said that if
I get along with Jake Zemke, that'd be the two Jakes then.
Yes, Jake squared.
Yep.
So Chris Ulrich told me that he'd take the ride and it would motivate himself to not be so fat.
Nah,
No?
he'll still be that fat. He's his dad.
And
It's impossible to lose his dad weight.
Let's see. Curtis Adams isn't doing a whole lot.
The last time Curtis rode my motorcycle, he brought it back and the pipe was the lowest part of the motorcycle. The wheels were off the ground.
Oh man,
nice motorcycle too.
Yeah, so Jeff Stern.
Yeah, is there a Formula 60?
Formula 60, that's what he said. He said he was calling you out, actually, Formula 60. So I don't know.
Yeah? Okay. But one time he was following me. He's like, I don't know how that's weird how you ride. I think I'm kind of old Mick Doohan style or something.
Wow.
He goes, I can't believe you go through the corner like that. How's that work?
So, Josh Hayes.
He asked at the track, he goes, hey man, I got 6 months to get ready. I can do it. I can still do it. I said,
yeah.
See those boys in blue over there? Go talk to them.
Hey man, I'm not doing anything. I'll ride it.
You see the boys in blue? Go talk to them.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure your name isn't one of those 20.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. Absolutely not.
Unless we want someone.
So for real though, I mean, the names I have, I mean, obviously a bunch of people asking about, Chaz Davies.
I can say he's on a list, but I think that he'll have a soft landing. I mean, the guy's been on half of the podiums this year, and he won the last one. Some people say, oh, he's just motivated to race at the end. He doesn't put in a good run when he's on contract. But, I kind of took his point, and he said that, if Ducati wanted to win a championship, what about the rest of the guys that didn't beat Ray the last 6 years?
Right.
The other guys have jobs that didn't beat Ray. So I kind of understand that point.
Right.
But, from what I remember of Chaz, I mean, he'd be a really good fit here. The guy is very precise, and he's gotten even more hungry, a much harder rider in World Superbike with all that time. When he was here, he was really precise, but he wasn't that aggressive. But doing World Supersport and then going to World Superbike, I mean, the guy's aggression is off the charts.
Oh yeah.
I think he'd be really fun to watch. I think he'd smash everyone. Perfectly honest.
That's why that was the
make some really boring racing.
I mean, he could also do the opposite of that, right? Like he could do what Tony did a few years ago when he
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, the difference is that a guy like Chaz is tall and Tony's relatively short. And Tony sits on a motorcycle one particular way where Chaz can maneuver his way around. Same with Jake, same with Ben Spies, same with Rossi. Those guys are able to move their body around and make the bike do things. Tony has to have a particular type of setup to work with his riding because he isn't big enough to really move his body around, change the bike as much as, like, if he has a bad working motorcycle, he's just not going to be able to ride it, where the other guys can. So I think that's sort of different.
Well, I was more of saying is like what Tony did is kind of made everybody else step up their game. Yeah,
no, I think that will happen, Okay. I mean, Cameron did that this year, right? Everybody went faster for the most part on the same rubber.
Yeah.
For the most part, everybody went faster.
Yeah. So Cam Peterson is another name.
Yeah, he's coming up. I'm sure his name's on the list. I'm just not sure what level.
Yeah, I mean, that dude, he and Melissa Paris had a pretty good program going on this year,
Yeah, Josh was his coach, so I'm sure he taught him a few things.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Nice guy too.
I'm sure Josh would like backhand him and push him out of the way to get on the bike though.
Oh yes, he would definitely Tanya Harding his ass.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good analogy. Tanya Harding. A back to the ankles.
Yes. I heard Bobby Fong's name mentioned.
Yeah, he called me like as soon as Road Racing World put out that little bit of gossip about Cameron potentially signing I think he was riding his bicycle. No sooner did I put on Road Racing World and see that article and finish reading it, Bobby Fong called me. I said, you got to call the boys in blue. I have no say so.
Yeah.
And when they say this is the guy, then okay, here's the test schedule.
And then Heron, you know, right?
The same, call the boys in blue.
Okay. So basically, you don't have
Duffy.
a rider. You don't know who it's going to be.
That's not even 20 yet. You gave me like 5.
I mean, you know, it's a couple
There's probably
days.
another 15 in there. I don't know who they are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that uncomfortable. Let's see. Somebody says Stefano Mesa.
Stefano Mesa. Yeah, local guy.
Yeah, he's that dude from back east, right?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I like to see is someone that can pick up where Cam left off. So that's pretty big shoes to fill at this point. But you never know. I mean, it could be somebody hops on it and boom, they're going the same pace again. But right. I don't think that's going to be quite the case because we have the same motorcycle on the other side of the tent and it isn't quite going the same pace, right?
Right.
So I think that, you know, we'll put some effort on that, put more effort on that side to get him up to pace, and then we'll see who shows up for the other ride.
So let's talk about data stuff a little bit. Okay. I know you have some.
Well, are you going to get that guy to show us how to do it?
Oh, the AIM solo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have some AIM data in here somewhere. And
yeah, it's probably mine from like 5 years ago.
Yeah, it looks terrible.
Thanks.
Which part do you want to see?
I think, you know, we talked about that cool stuff about the transition from right to left at the top of the corkscrew entry.
Yeah, I can show you some of that, like what it looked like before we kind of fixed it. Same
yeah, I think you should do like a before and what you saw, and then do the after and kind of talk a little bit about what you did to resolve that and make it better so Cam can go and.
Yeah, I'd have to basically tell you a little bit about the tables and not show you the tables. You follow what I'm saying?
Okay.
But I can show you the data, some of it.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll show you the torque control stuff first that we were asking about, how the throttle is applied versus what the rider does.
Yes.
Okay, let me show you some of that. So okay. Let me see here. Put on my binoculars. And
binoculars. Nice.
Yeah, share the screen. Let's see here. That one. Okay. You good? You see it?
I see it.
And so let's first start with a little bit of
lots of squiggly lines.
Yes. So here is, so you see where this is right here, exit of turn 5?
Yes.
And it's kind of going uphill, right? So the bike's really wheelie a lot over there without showing you all the cut and stuff it does. So this is Cameron going in. You can see the red here is his brake pressure.
Yes.
So this is the basically before, right there would be before like 45, 48 degrees. So right there, if you're looking at the lean angle here or over here, he's like at 49 degrees. So let me slide it over so you kind of see it. We'll do the whole entry and exit of turn 5.
Okay.
So he comes in at turn 5, boom, boom. He's downshifting. Those blips are downshifts.
Okay.
And then he's like at 14 degrees, so he's fairly in line. You can see the separation from the rear wheel. The blue is the front wheel, and the yellow is the rear wheel. So that separation is the amount of engine braking you have. So the rear wheel is actually skidding at a little slower pace than the front wheel is going, correct? And so as he slides into the corner, you know, he starts to lean it over, pretty hard on the brake still. So there, he's still getting 8 bars of braking. So up here is like right about 10 and a half bars, almost 11 bars.
Right.
Then he starts to feather it in to about 10 bars of braking. And then he just keeps rolling off the brake as he rolls into the corner. You can see the lean angle over here going up. So he's almost at 50 degrees. And right when he gets to, let's say this is on his knee, he's still pulling the lever pretty good. So he's still holding it at 2 bars all the way to the apex. And then that's a brake release and that's a throttle pickup. So you see that section there, brake to throttle?
Yes.
Red to green. That's what I call coasting. Real good riders, that thing will almost be 0, like he is. Starting up riders, they'll be releasing the brake like this and coasting. You know, like with their knee to the apex.
So that gap right there would be a lot bigger if I was the one.
Right, right. So he gets the apex there, and it's basically a face, right?
Yeah.
And he hasn't even gotten full lean angle yet because he's hitting the face of that turn 5, and then he starts to open the throttle. And then as he opens the throttle, lean angle gets even greater. So there he is, almost 63 degrees, right? which is an estimation. He could be a little higher, a little less. And then the green trace is his throttle hand. So as he opens the throttle, the blue trace is what the engine is doing, the engine's throttle. So all this stuff here is what the engine does to control how much power you apply to the front end.
So that line across the top is his hand on the
hand.
stop.
So he goes from there to full throttle. So from the apex, or from before the apex, he's already applying the throttle. Because the apex is right there at the slowest part. So as he opens the throttle to full, the throttle chases him. And what we do is, the trick is to give him as much throttle as we can without upsetting the chassis. So over in this red trace here is a estimated front suspension position. And the reason why that's estimated is some of it is real and some of it is calculated off the pitch of the motorcycle.
Okay.
And so that tells you how much it's wheeling.
Yeah.
So it's not wheeling at all coming off of here. He's just kind of skimming along the ground at 4 millimeters. And then he's full throttle, and as he shifts gears, you can see the power keeps getting applied more and more and more, because you're losing torque by every shift. You lose torque through the sprockets, right? So right here it starts to wheelie as he starts to apply more and more throttle. So you can see where the front wheel slows down right there, and the rear wheel is still kind of going over the curbing. Well, he kind of skims the curbing there. You don't really go on the curbing there because the curbing falls off a little bit. And then as it starts to wheelie, you can see this number here starts getting to -14.
What is that?
That's the estimated front travel. So that's looking at your forks as if they were infinitesimally long.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like you had infinite travel extending. So once you get to 0, you don't know where you're at. But then the IMU takes over and says, okay, you were here, so we estimate you're here. And based on that, it applies a certain amount more wheelie cut.
Okay.
And brings the bike back in. So there's a little bump right there. So he gets a little bit more wheelie than we'd like. It's like 46 millimeters, so a little over 1.5 inches, you know, and then it comes back online and then it continues up the hill. So that's how the power is applied versus some cut, which you're not able to see here. Some torque reduction and cut. So then we work our way over to where you were talking about. Oops, too far. Over here into turn 8. Right, so this is him coming up the hill. Same thing. We apply the throttle kind of gradually.
So is this the before or the after?
This is. Let me see what lap that is. This is his fastest lap. You want to see the before or the after first?
I think we should take the before so we can see what it was that you saw, and then we can talk a little bit about what you did to resolve it and compare.
Okay, so earlier on he was complaining about a push in there that we had to kind of analyze and see what was happening.
Yeah.
So if you look at here where the rear wheel is skidding going into turn 8.
Yeah.
Well, let's first back up and tell you how he goes in the corner, right? So he comes out of turn 6 and then he arcs left, and the lean angle out in 6 is like 60 degrees or something. And as he arcs left, he kind of reduces lean angle. You guys see it here?
Yeah.
Reduce lean angle. And then he flips right as he's going left. He flips right into 7. That's what this V is here. It goes from 24.5 to 0 over to here. And so as he flips right, he grabs the brakes and starts back shifting down into 7. So 7 isn't really a corner, but just kind of the entry into 8. Right? And you're coming off kind of a little rise, you know. That's where you get kind of a wheelie right here where the front wheel's slowing down again. But it's not really a big wheelie because you only have 6 millimeters or so off the ground, you know, so it's just basically less than 1/4 inch off the ground. And so then you go into this dip, you flip right. So that's what this is V is when it goes to 0 and starts to lean right. So when he leans right, you get a little bit of a push right there.
Yeah.
Where the rear isn't skidding anymore. And then as he leans right before he flips left again, you get a little bit of push right there too. You see that little hump right there?
Yeah.
Where the rear's not skidding anymore. And then that V is right before he flips down the hill going into the corkscrew, and then he flips again coming out of the corkscrew. So that make any sense to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you see this little trace where the rear wheel is. I could probably put it up, but there's all kinds of other channels you can look at, which is the percentage of slip. the percentage of slip, you're going to see that it goes down in this little area, but you can kind of, deduct that when these things are together, the slip isn't that great. When these things are apart, the slip is pretty great. So then as we work on that, and we play around with the tables, and we end up, let's say in race 3 on his fastest lap. Now you can see as he goes into 7, and he flips right to go into 7.
Right.
See, as soon as he flips and grabs the brakes, you have a nice smooth skidding of the rear wheel.
Yes.
And that little hump right there, where he flips from right to left, is gone.
Yeah.
It's very linear. And so what he was experiencing was, as he goes down into 7, and he's grabbing the brakes real hard, and he's skidding the rear tire, trying to get as much possible braking as possible, get him into that corner. He would, as he went over the top of the tire, when he went from right to left, as he was braking, he would get a little bit of a push because he got on the fat part of the tire. You follow what I'm saying? So the bike would actually accelerate because the wheel's going at fairly constant RPM. It's trying to slow down. As you get over the top, the diameter changes and the bike actually accelerates.
Yeah.
So what we do in the tables is, as the bike goes into this lean angle, we crank down the engine braking harder and then release it again. So you follow what I'm saying, until you get a nice linear shot. And we kept doing that, and he kept going faster and faster and faster. And why would he go faster? Because we were doing this. Because he's no longer thinking, why would this one corner help him on the rest of the racetrack?
Right.
He's no longer thinking, man, I'm really getting pushed into turn 8 when he goes through 9 or 10, and the similar thing was happening in 2. Because in 2, you would, anyway, let me finish my thought. So he's no longer thinking about what's happening in turn 8. Instead of, when he gets past turn 8, he goes, man, the bike worked really well on turn 8. So he nails 9 and 10 and all those other ones much better because he's in a better frame of mind.
Right.
You follow what I'm saying? So
yeah.
So getting one corner better gets you kind of a little more confident, and that makes you nail all the other corners better, even if it is just that one corner.
Yeah, you're making the bike easier for him to ride, and then his confidence goes up, and he's able to ride even faster, right?
Yeah. So you get a little bit of the same thing in turn 2, where you get this V. It isn't a standard corner, because turn 2 you get out of 1, and you brake while you're turning, and then you lean a little bit the other direction, and then you brake again. You follow what I'm saying? You straighten the bike out, so it isn't a constant from here to here. It isn't one bend. You get a little V. So whenever you get this V, you're getting on the bigger part of the tire, and the bike's accelerating. So as you can see, as he's downshifting in here, as you downshift, the rear wheel stays kind of together because it's pretty high speed. And then when he gets in the V, you actually get a little bit of the rear tire helping him slow down and getting the bike put in a position. And then it smooths out, and he gets the apex, and he picks up the throttle. Once again, his braking, which is here, this red, we're putting, 10 or 11 bar right here, and it tapers off all the way to the apex. You see that? The red and the throttle are exactly the same.
So he's trailing the brakes all the way to the apex.
He is wasting no time. What does that help with? It helps with reducing chatter. When you coast, you open up all the possibilities of chatter, and you're also wasting no time on coasting, either slowing down or you're accelerating. And that's pretty great, because that is a 180-degree corner. A lot of guys will think, oh man, I'm just going to coast all the way through that thing. Well, he doesn't coast at all. He brakes all the way to it and opens the throttle again. How does he do it 23-1? These are the ways you do it 23-1. Wow. And that example is everywhere around the racetrack.
Talking to Sven, when he was explaining that to me, he was saying that, he kind of used the Keith Code $10 analogy.
Keith Code what?
Yeah, the Keith Code's twist of the wrist thing. It's about the $10, the proverbial $10 of riding.
I don't know that book.
Basically, it's like,
is that like does it come on the back part of Scientology book, or?
I don't know about all that, dude. There's something about there that was like
Hubbard's book.
You're spending parts of your, you're spending parts of your $10 on that little hump in the data, right? And so you're taking away that and he still has more. He has that rest of that $10 to spend somewhere else on the track, basically. So it's just.
I know Paul Harrell spent his $10. He turned them into ones and went down to the.
God damn it!
Strip joint in Vegas.
Jesus Christ, Richard. Okay, so I have another guy that says that. Oh, and Matty Testa is saying how impressive this data overlay stuff is.
But showing little bits of it, but there's like hundreds of situations like that through the weekend.
Yeah.
So you have to nail it all together and put it all into one basic package. And it's just about organization, right? Being organized with your notes and being organized in your head.
Well, Sven was telling me that there was some places on the track where you can see, those up and down areas too, but he basically kind of almost, I don't want to call it blowing them off, but he was like, oh, well, the rider doesn't give a shit about those ones.
Yeah. Some things, like as soon as we showed up, he said the very first session, we went out, boom. And we ran the first session, we ran the same tire the whole time. And because he wanted to kind of familiarize himself with the track again and the feeling and making sure the bike is doing what it's supposed to do. And when you put new tires on every 5 minutes, you never get a chance to feel what the bike's really going to do. You got a new tire feel, right? So it's going to slow down really good. It's not going to skid, all that kind of stuff. So immediately he goes out and does like eight or so laps, comes back in and goes straight to the map. I need less EB here, more EB there, less EB, more EB here, less EB there. And then we start figuring out all the trouble spots. Like, wow, I really need more in 5. I really need more in 2. I really need more in 8. But I don't need any in here, here, and here, because I feel like it's slowing me down too much. I can't maintain my momentum. So those are the things, the way we kind of work towards a decent setup. And I would do that with any rider, whoever that is in the future, just bust out the map, show me the trouble spots. And then the thing with trouble spots, like a lot of tuners will go, they focus on what the bike's doing wrong, and they will never ask the question of what the bike's doing good. So you really have to know both, so you don't take away the good while you're trying to fix the bad. Make sense?
Yeah. So there's let's see, Joseph Svium, sorry.
S.
Joseph S.
Yeah.
Will Richard be Jake's crew chief next year?
Jake Zemke? I just had a meeting with Jake. When we talked about the 20 riders, which I don't know even on the list, he says, I'm on there. He was, because he's Cameron's agent.
Yeah, Gagne's crew chief. Are you going to be Gagne's crew chief?
I don't know. I don't know what the team makeup's going to be like. I don't even know who the crew chiefs will be, or I may step back from a crew chief role and take another role. I'm not sure. Because sometimes when a rider comes, he brings people. What's that?
I said, you already have 27 roles. You're like truck driver, engine builder, data guy. Like, I mean, you could give up a job.
I'm thinking about it. There's a couple decent guys that I'd like to have under our tent, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as crew goes.
Guy.
I've seen a few of them around, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, and then that track time focus guy, he says that with limited testing this year, how many iterations of the swing arm did you go through? How did you design and analyze the changes you wanted to make over the World Superbike swing arm?
Didn't we already do this? That's okay, I'll repeat.
Didn't you already? I think, yeah, dude. Like if you watch the previous ones,
yeah, you gotta watch like 8 hours of other stuff. You'll find the answer to that somewhere.
Okay,
here's the accelerated version.
Yeah.
4 iterations.
Okay.
And we tested a world Superbike swing arm from the guys at Yamaha Europe are so kind to loan us in the winter, and we found, which was kind of primarily designed around a Pirelli. So we found kind of the weakness in that swing arm, and we worked around designing a swing arm that would maybe fix the weaknesses in the YME arm. And this is what we have now.
Okay.
And how do we go about it? That's what computers are for.
There you go.
The slide rule days are over.
I think I'm going to take and I'll section off some of those chats, and I'll I'll throw a different video up, basically pull that section out of the video so the guy doesn't.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, take the boring stuff out of our talks and just make like a little collage of interesting stuff.
And then Matty Testa wants to know if he can be a data intern.
No.
Sorry, Matty.
I don't have time to teach anyone. Wow. I better have time to run the crew.
Well, there you go.
Richard, if he watches another 100 hours of this, he might learn something.
Sure. Yeah. All right. So, we're basically almost an hour and a half into this thing.
Really? Wow, that went by pretty fast.
I know, right?
That's it, though. We won't do any more for a while.
Well, I think that's not necessarily true, right?
Oh, really?
I think I'm going to do one with Chuck next week, but then, we're going to do that roundtable thing.
So how do I put in my questions? Should I just text you my questions when Chuck's talking? I like to harass him.
You could subscribe to YouTube.
Nah, I don't do social media.
Yeah, so
I can do YouTube.
What?
Yeah, too many haters in social media.
Yeah, it is it's a different breed of animal for sure. But
you know what? I never got to give my trophy acceptance speech at the track.
I think you should give it before
because they had the COVID thing. They didn't have any awards banquet or anything.
Yeah.
And I would practice my speech for such a long time. You want to hear it?
All right, let's do it.
All right. So I was going to go up there and hold up my trophy like this without slitting my throat and say, I want to thank obviously the riders, the crew, Yamaha, blah, 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 blah. But more importantly, I want to thank the haters and the doubters for giving me such motivation. To those guys, I give them the one finger salute. What do you think? How do you like that?
Seems legit, dude. Seems legit.
There's a few other guys that motivated me in there too.
Yeah?
Well, like that one other company I worked with that screwed me for a bunch of money at the end of my contract.
Mm-hmm.
Their logo is the Japanese assassin or something like that. Who could that possibly be?
Yeah, aren't those G.I. Joe has a couple of characters that fit that description, I think, right?
Something like that. G.I. Joe team.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay.
With that, we end the show.
Yes. I hope everybody enjoys. Tune in, I guess, subscribe or whatever, please. And I guess, like I said, I'm going to do one with Chuck Cicchetto pretty soon. And then I think we'll do a roundtable one with you, Chuck, maybe Chris.
He's fat. Would he fit in the screen?
I think it'll look like the Brady Bunch or something. I don't know how it exactly works.
Oh, yeah, the old Brady Bunch thing. That's what Zoom looks now.
Yeah, so, he's not that old, but he's got a serious amount of gray hair. Being a dad.
This racing thing puts gray hair on.
Does it?
Oh, yeah. It's a lot of stress.
Oh, I bet.
It's fun for me, but it's a lot of stress.
Right. So
I enjoy stress. I don't care.
Yeah, you kind of thrive on it, actually.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Chris, Chuck. Who else? Me?
I think maybe Melissa.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Right?
You'd have to put a bleep button on, though.
No. Absolutely not. I like this whole non-filtered thing.
That'd be kind of cool. Is she the first female crew chief kind of thing?
I think so, man.
Whatever you call it.
Oh, I'm proud of her because, man, she just in
the history of our sport, I don't know. That'd be other girls working on bikes.
I'm sure Greg White knows the stats on that. I don't know.
Yeah. Greg White's kind of a girl, so maybe he's the first.
I bet he knows. I bet Greg White knows the answer to that. But yeah. So you, Chuck, Chris Ulrich, Kyle Wyman.
Yeah, it should be Superbikes.
Right?
Should be Superbikes. Sorry, Melissa, but it should be like the Superbike crew chiefs, I think, or the owners, team owners.
There you go.
Well, Chuck's not really a team owner.
I'll do one with Melissa another time then.
What's that?
I said, now that you've hucked Melissa aside, I'll do one with her.
No, I wouldn't mind having Melissa in there, but it kind of should be Superbike based, right?
Right. Well, they did race Superbike this year.
Okay, she's allowed.
Yeah.
I take it back.
They did it on a stalker, but they still did it.
Yeah, they did all right.
You know, I saw Cam Peterson at the end of the day walking around with a giant check, you know, and
$50.
yeah, 25 grand, you know.
25 grand, really?
Dude, he got a check for 25 grand for winning the Superbike Cup thing. So,
oh, that's a good payday.
yeah, I think that's a good motivator to get those super stock guys out there to race.
I think that's a really good program. I've been, you know, like hammering those guys a little bit to help the teams not mess with the rules. You know, like messing with the rules isn't going to get anybody to the next race. All it's going to do is make it more expensive for the guys who are there, changing the rules. And now you got to go and redo all your stuff. You got to go to the racetrack and test.
Yeah,
that costs money.
Yeah,
It costs a lot of money. It's better just to keep the equipment the same, so you can keep working on the info you have. That's way cheaper.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you guys will all have a roundtable discussion on that.
No, I think they don't have a riders association in this organization, not like MotoGP and World Superbike and things like that.
Well, I mean, you know, based on what I've been hearing, people are listening to this thing that we're doing. So.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
that should be more filtered.
They get repeated on other shows and stuff, which is hilarious.
Yeah, I hope the Yamaha guys don't watch.
I mean, the Yamaha guys actually do watch.
Uh-oh.
I don't know which ones, but I mean, I know the marketing dudes that help me with my program watched. So anyway.
Cool.
All right, Richard, I'm going to go back to work and do whatever it is that you're doing, and I'll see you next time.
All right, dude. Talk to you later.
All right. Now get to work on my bike finally.
Yeah, at some point.